The first bank alert came through while I was packing for our family vacation. $28,000. Auto dealership purchase. And my husband wasn't answering his phone. You know that kind of silence that crawls up the back of your neck? The kind that feels less like peace and more like warning? That's what filled my kitchen that morning. The coffee machine hissed. My suitcase lay half open on the floor. I'd been folding swimsuits and sunscreen bottles into bags, humming to myself, planning how good it would feel to finally take a break. For months, we'd been saving for this trip. Derek and I hadn't gone anywhere since our honeymoon. We called it our do-over vacation. Things between us had been off. Not bad exactly, but distant. Like two people living side by side instead of together. He said we needed this, a reset. So when my phone buzzed with that notification, I thought it was the airline confirming our booking. But it wasn't. It was the bank. Alert. New transaction, $28,000. Auto World dealership. My thumb hovered over the screen. I blinked twice, thinking maybe I'd read it wrong. But it stayed there. Black letters on a white screen, each one digging a little deeper into my chest. I called Derek once. Straight to voicemail. Twice. Still nothing. By the third call, my heart had started to pound. Because that wasn't a small mistake. That was our joint account. The one where both our paychecks went, the one we used to pay our mortgage, the one we were so proud to have built together. $28,000. Gone. And all I could think was, what on earth did he buy? The next sound in the house was our daughter, Emily, calling from upstairs. "Mom, where's my blue bathing suit?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and called back, "In your drawer, baby." She was 8, too young to know what panic looked like. I set the phone down and stared at it, willing it to ring. The sun coming through the kitchen blinds hit the stainless steel fridge, bouncing little streaks of light across the floor. It all looked so normal, like the calm before a storm that doesn't know it's already started. When Derek finally called me back, it was nearly an hour later. His voice was casual. "Hey, you called?" I remember how I had to bite my tongue to keep my voice even. "Yeah," I said. "The bank just notified me about a purchase, $28,000. Silence. Then a quick breath, the kind people take when they've been caught off guard. "Oh," he said. "Yeah, that." "That what, Derek?" He hesitated. It's not what you think. It's a loan." "A loan?" I repeated. "We don't loan out $28,000 to who?" He sighed, that heavy exhale men give when they think you're overreacting. "It's for a friend at work. She's been going through a rough patch, and She?" He didn't answer fast enough. "Derek," I said quietly, "who did you buy a car for?" He stammered something about a coworker named Lila, about how her car broke down and she needed a reliable vehicle to keep her job, about how he'd help her just until she gets back on her feet. He said he'd already arranged payments, that she'd pay him back in a few months. But I knew better, because there's a certain tone in a man's voice when he's protecting something. Or someone. And I just heard it. That night, I didn't sleep. He came home late, later than usual, smelling faintly of cologne he didn't wear for me anymore. He kissed Emily goodnight, avoided my eyes, and went straight to the shower. I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through our online banking, every transaction like a breadcrumb leading somewhere I didn't want to go. The dealership name matched a branch not far from his office. The payment cleared instantly. Cash purchase. No financing. He'd done it in one go. When he came out of the bathroom, towel draped around his neck, I asked, "How much are you getting back from this loan?" He froze. "What?" "You said she's paying you back. How much each month?" I don't know yet. She's still figuring it out." I nodded. "And the car's in her name?" He looked at me then, his eyes narrowing just a little. Not guilt exactly, but defensiveness. "I put it under her name for insurance reasons. She needed it fast." I let that sit in the air between us. "Right," I said softly. "Insurance." When he climbed into bed, he rolled to his side, away from me. I watched the rise and fall of his shoulders, the faint glow of his phone screen lighting his face. My own screen buzzed on the nightstand, another alert from the bank, reminding me of our current balance. It was lower than I'd ever seen it. And right then, something inside me shifted. Not anger yet, just a cold kind of clarity. Because the man beside me wasn't the man I thought I married. He was someone who could take what we built, what we saved, and give it to another woman, and still look me in the eye like nothing had changed. But something had. Something had cracked. And I wasn't sure if it could ever be repaired. There's something about being blindsided that makes you look back with new eyes. In the weeks that followed, I started to notice all the little moments I used to ignore. The ways we'd started slipping away from each other long before that bank alert ever lit up my phone. But if you'd asked me before that day, I would have told you Derek and I were doing okay. We weren't newlyweds anymore, no, but we had a rhythm. We were the kind of couple who knew how the other took their coffee. Cream, no sugar for him. Hazelnut, 2 sugars for me. We took turns on school runs. He handled bedtime stories, I handled morning rush. On Saturdays, he mowed the lawn while I meal prepped for the week. On Sundays, we fought over the thermostat and ordered Chinese. It wasn't magical. It was marriage. Comfortable, predictable, safe, or so I thought. We met in church. Funny how I still remember what he was wearing. Gray slacks, rolled sleeves, tie undone like he'd just loosened up from something tight. He smiled at me across the pew like he'd already decided something. Told me after service that he liked the way I listened when I prayed. That line made me laugh, but it worked. 3 years later, we were married. 4 years after that, we had Emily. He wasn't perfect, Lord knows. Derek was one of those men who knew how to look good on paper. Good job, project manager for a construction firm, steady income. He said all the right things in public, had manners, charisma. But at home, it was different. Not abusive, not loud, just absent, emotionally quiet, like his mind was always someplace else, even when he was sitting beside me. It had gotten worse after my father passed last year. That grief changed me, made me crave closeness and softness. But Derek seemed to move the other way. He buried himself in work, stayed late more often. "I'm just trying to give us stability," he said once, when I asked if we could take a weekend just to reconnect. But stability means nothing if the foundation's hollow. Still, I clung to the idea of us. I planned that family vacation not just for Emily, but to save something I was scared I'd already lost. Emily was my everything. A little version of me, but braver, full of questions and sass and soft curls I could never keep tied up. She adored her father, ran to him when he walked through the door, drew pictures of the 3 of us, always holding hands. I used to believe that was enough, that if a child felt safe and loved, maybe we were doing something right. But I started to wonder, what kind of example was I setting? What kind of love was I modeling? Because I was the one staying up late balancing the budget, clipping coupons, making vacation spreadsheets. And Derek, he was buying cars for friends. One night, before any of this started, I remember sitting on the couch with him. Emily was asleep. The house was quiet. We were watching some crime show. I don't remember which. He had one hand on his phone, texting someone, barely watching. I leaned over and said, "Do you ever feel like we're just roommates with a mortgage?" He looked up, startled, smiled like I was joking. But I wasn't. He kissed my forehead and said, "Nah, you're too pretty to be my roommate." And just like that, the moment passed, but I never forgot it. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't always come like thunder, loud and messy and obvious. Sometimes it comes like rust, quiet, slow, eating away at everything until the surface collapses under your feet. And by the time you feel the fall, it's already too late. After that $28,000 car purchase, I started going through our statements. Late at night, after Emily went to bed, I'd sit in the kitchen with a glass of wine and a notepad, combing through every charge from the last 6 months. There were things I hadn't noticed before. Uber rides from places he never mentioned, dinner charges for two, nice places, not his usual grab-a-burger spots, flower shops, spa gift cards, none of them for me, and all paid for by our money, our joint account, the one we'd opened together the week after our wedding, standing at the bank, holding hands, smiling like fools. I remember how proud we were. No secrets, he said. We build this life together. I guess he forgot that part, and so did I. For too long. But something in me was waking up now, not the loud part of me, not the yelling, glass-breaking part some women might lean into. No, mine was quieter. Still, cold. The kind of clarity that only comes when you've cried all your tears and you're just empty and ready. Because if there was more to this story, if Derek was hiding something deeper, I was going to find out. And I wouldn't be looking away this time. The first time I saw her name, Lila, it was on a Venmo transaction, buried between a dozen other entries, groceries, bills, the usual. $200. Memo. For the weekend, thanks again. That little blue heart? It burned hotter than any red flag. I was never the kind of woman who checked her husband's phone. Not because I trusted blindly, but because I believed trust was something you built, like a home. You don't check the walls every morning to see if they're still holding, but when the ceiling cracks and water starts dripping through, well, you look. So I started looking, and what I saw made my stomach twist. Photos. From office parties I never attended. Derek standing beside her. Lila. Always just close enough for suspicion. In one, she leaned her head on his shoulder, laughing like they shared a private joke. In another, he was handing her a wine glass. I remembered that night. He came home smelling like smoke and bourbon, said it was just a long one, and went straight to bed. He hadn't mentioned Lila. He never did. The next morning, I asked him casually, "How's that coworker of yours, Lila?" He blinked. "She's fine." "That's the one you bought the car for?" He froze, just for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, she's a good person. Just had a rough patch." "What kind of rough patch costs $28,000? He chuckled nervously, pretending to butter his toast. "Maya, it wasn't like that. I told you. She needed help, that's all." I watched the way he wouldn't meet my eyes. "How long have you two been close?" I asked. "We're not close," he said. "We just work well together. She's single, has no family nearby. I felt bad for her." "Felt bad enough to buy her a car?" He sighed. "We've been over this." "No," I said softly. "You've explained it. That's not the same." He got up from the table and kissed Emily on the head. "I'm going to be late," he mumbled, grabbing his keys. After he left, I pulled out my laptop, Googled her full name, Lila Chambers, and there she was, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Her profile photo was taken in front of a brand new SUV. The caption read, "So grateful for the people who believe in me when I don't believe in myself. Yam blessed Junasa new beginnings." The comments were full of congratulations, but one caught my eye. From Derek. "You earned it. Don't let anyone tell you different." I sat back in my chair, hands trembling slightly. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about intimacy, the kind that doesn't always look like sex. Sometimes it looks like loyalty. Misplaced, misused, misdirected. And when your husband starts pouring affection into another woman's struggles instead of yours, that's betrayal too. That weekend, I waited until he left for a late site visit to do what I never imagined I'd do. I checked his email. I didn't go digging. Not at first. But the first thing that popped up was a thread labeled lunch receipts for L. He'd been forwarding expense reports from his personal account, but the company didn't cover lunches, and they sure didn't cover weekends. I opened one message and saw the reservation. Maison du Jardin, 2 guests, 172 bonheurs. That wasn't a burger and fries lunch. That was a candle-lit linen tablecloth make-her-feel special dinner. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the screen like it might confess something more if I looked hard enough, and all I could think was, this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice, a series of them. To hide, to lie, to spend, to give, not to me, but to her. That night, when he came home, I asked if he wanted tea. He looked surprised. "Yeah," he said slowly. "Sure." I boiled water, poured 2 mugs, added lemon to his, just how he liked it. We sat in silence, and then I said it. I saw the receipt. He didn't ask which one, didn't even pretend not to know, just looked at the mug in his hand like it might vanish if he wished hard enough. "I'm sorry," he said finally, and somehow that was worse than a lie, because it meant it was real. I stared at him over the rim of my mug. The steam from the tea curled between us like a veil, thin but enough to hide behind. "Sorry for what, Derek?" He didn't answer right away. He just rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting toward the window as if the streetlights could offer him an escape. For how it looks," he said. "How it looks," I repeated, each word slow, deliberate. "You bought another woman a car with our money. There's not a version of that looks good." He winced. "It's not, Maya, it's not like that. She was struggling. I wanted to help. That's all." I leaned forward. "You didn't ask me. You didn't tell me. You didn't even warn me before draining our account. You just did it." He looked down. "I thought you'd say no." I laughed, a small, bitter sound that didn't feel like me. "You thought right." We sat there in silence, the clock on the wall ticking too loudly, marking every second of the trust dying between us. I wanted him to deny it, to reach across the table, swear it meant nothing, show me proof that I was wrong. But he didn't. Instead, he whispered, "I didn't mean to hurt you." And that was when I realized he wasn't sorry for the act. He was sorry for the consequence. 2 days later, I went to the dealership. The salesman remembered the purchase immediately. "Oh yes, Mr. Montgomery, nice guy, bought the SUV outright for his girlfriend." He stopped himself, lips pressing together too late. I felt my stomach twist. "His coworker," I corrected quietly. The man blinked. "Right, my mistake." He handed me a copy of the sale record. I didn't ask. He just assumed I was the wife checking paperwork. I guess the look on my face said enough. The registration listed Lila Chambers as the owner. The payment came from our joint account, and in the notes, a message typed in the remarks field. "Surprise gift, congratulations on promotion." I walked out into the parking lot and sat in my car until the sunlight faded into orange haze. A promotion. She'd gotten promoted, and my husband had celebrated with $28,000 of our future. That night, when he came home, I was waiting. The papers were spread across the table. The dealership logo glared from the header like a witness. He froze when he saw them. "Where'd you get those?" "Does it matter?" I said. "You lied, Derek. You told me it was a loan. You said she needed help, but this wasn't help. This was you showing off." He started to speak, but I raised my hand. "No, you don't get to talk yet." I pointed to the signature line. "You signed this. You wrote her name. You typed that little note like it was cute. Do you even hear yourself?" His voice cracked. "It wasn't romantic, Maya. It was a gift, a friend thing." "A friend thing?" I repeated. "You don't buy your coworkers' cars, Derek. You barely remember our anniversary, but you bought her a car?" He opened his mouth again, then shut it, because there was nothing left to say. I don't remember crying right away. It was like my body didn't know how. I just sat there, staring at the man I'd built a life with, and realized he'd built another life alongside it, one I wasn't invited into. He finally whispered, "She was having a hard year. Divorce, money issues. She's a good person." I felt something cold spread through me. "And what am I?" He flinched. "Don't do that. No, answer me. What am I, Derek? The woman who holds the bills together? The one who makes sure there's gas in my car? The one I can barely afford because you emptied our savings." He didn't answer. When he went upstairs, I sat at that table until the house went still. Then I opened my laptop. I looked up Lila Chambers' construction firm and found her employee profile, a smiling headshot, bright eyes, pretty, polished. The kind of woman who'd know exactly how to tilt her head when a man started feeling like a hero. And under professional achievements, Employee of the Quarter. Awarded by Derek Montgomery, project manager. Of course. The next morning, I dropped Emily at school and drove straight to his office. The receptionist smiled. "Hi, Mrs. Montgomery. Haven't seen you here before." "No," I said, matching her smile. "Just wanted to drop something off for Derek." He wasn't expecting me. That much was obvious when I opened his door. Lila was there, sitting in a chair beside his desk, laughing at something on his phone. She froze the moment she saw me. "Hi," she said quickly, standing up. "You must be—" "I'm his wife," I finished for her. Her face fell. Derek stood abruptly. "Maya, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same," I said, holding up the printed paperwork. "Maybe you two can tell me together why our bank account bought her this car." The room went so quiet I could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Lila's lips parted. "I didn't know it was joint money. He told me it was his bonus." Derek's jaw clenched. "Lila, no," I said, cutting him off. "Let her speak." Her eyes darted between us. I swear, I wouldn't have accepted if I'd known. He said he had extra after taxes. He offered. She looked genuinely shaken, not guilty, not proud, just small. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't the enemy. He was. I turned to Derek. "You lied to both of us." He reached out, desperate. "Maya, please." I stepped back. "Don't. Not here. Not now." I handed him the keys to our car, my car, and said quietly, "You can drive yourself home tonight, because I won't be there." Then I walked out of that office without looking back. In the elevator, I finally let myself cry. Not the soft movie kind of tears, the deep, shaking ones that steal your breath. Because I wasn't just mourning a marriage. I was mourning the trust that used to live inside it. And once that dies, there's no bringing it back. When I got to my car, I sat behind the wheel with my hands clenched around the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. The dealership papers were folded in my bag like a verdict. Derek's texts stacked up. "Maya, wait, please, I can explain." Each one growing more frantic, shorter, less coherent. I turned the engine on and drove without a destination. The neighborhood blurred by in familiar faces and manicured lawns. It was almost absurd how ordinary everything looked. A mailman putting letters through a slot, a kid riding a scooter, Mrs. Patel watering her rosebush. Meanwhile, my life felt like it had been edited out of its own footage. When the initial shock receded, something practical took over. Rage is useful in small doses. It fuels action. I loved Emily, and love sharpens priorities. If Derek could spend our vacation fund on someone else, what else had he taken? What other leaks did our marriage have? First thing I did was change the passwords. Not to be dramatic, to protect what remained. I logged into our bank account and switched the online settings so that any new transfers would require a joint confirmation. I called the bank and explained calmly and without the jagged edges inside me showing that I needed a temporary freeze on large purchases. They asked the usual questions, verification, security checks, and then a sympathetic woman's voice said, "We'll flag the account and notify us of any suspicious activity." It was a small victory. Bureaucratic and cold, but it felt like closing a door. Next, I documented everything. Receipts, screenshots, emails, the dealership copy, social media posts with Derek's congratulatory comment. I printed them all, made a folder and labeled it, "For now." It felt prudent, like a woman preparing evidence for a future she didn't yet want to step into, but was ready for. I called my sister, Renee. She'd always been my anchor when things in my life tilted. When she picked up, I heard the worry before I even said a word. "You okay?" she asked. "Not really," I admitted, "but I'm handling it." She asked me if I wanted to come over. I hesitated only a second. "Yes, come now." When she opened the door, she took one look at my face and wrapped me up. "I'm so sorry, May, I should have noticed." "You shouldn't," I said. "I didn't either. He's good at the little theatrical things. He knows how to blink and make you forgive him." Renee made tea and listened, really listened, as I told her the whole story. The car, the receipts, the dinners, the Venmo hearts. She didn't gasp or say anything dramatic. She asked questions that were practical. Did I want to file anything? Did I want to talk to a lawyer? Did I want to tell my parents? I told her no, not yet. I needed a plan, not pity. We sat at the kitchen table and mapped it out. Secure our money, protect Emily, collect proof, and decide on the home front. Legal action felt premature. Public shaming felt childish. What I wanted was clarity and a way to make sure Derek couldn't vanish with our savings or keep siphoning money in secret. That afternoon, while Emily napped at Renee's house, I drove to Derek's office again, not to confront him, but to gather my composure. Seeing him rummaging through his desk with a pale face made me feel equal parts pity and disgust. He offered an explanation that sounded rehearsed. Guilt, confusion, the noble sounding, "I wanted to help." I'd heard it before. I wanted something else. Responsibility. When I forced him to meet me at the kitchen table that night, with Renee there as witness, I didn't yell. I don't think that would have done much. Instead, I read to him the list of expenses I'd found, one by one. Dinners, spa cards, hotel stays, florist charges. Each entry landed like a small stone. "You have no idea what you've done to us," I said. "Not just the money, Derek. You've turned our home into a ledger you can spend on whoever you please. You treated saving for our kids, for our life, as petty. That's selfish." He looked like a man who'd been awake for days. There were circles under his eyes and a guilty muscle in his jaw. He tried to explain again that he hadn't meant to hurt us. I told him intentions didn't change outcomes. If he wanted to make amends, he could start by being accountable. "So do something," I said. "Put the car on a payment plan from your own account. Return the gift. If it's really her money, show me the transfers. Sign a paper saying you'll be transparent. Sit down with me and a counselor. Do anything that says you value our family." His face crumpled. He promised. He promised to take care of it. But promises, without action, had become soundless to me. I needed proof. Over the next week, he made noises of compliance. He applied for a short-term loan in his name, he told me, to cover the amount. But the bank showed no such application. He called Lila and left a message. I heard it because he forgot to mute the speaker, saying things that made my blood run cold. "You're worth it. Don't worry about her." That sent me over the edge. I decided then to bring in a third party, not a lawyer, not yet, but someone who could mediate. Our pastor. We'd been married in that church. The pastor knew us. He agreed to talk to Derek privately and to sit with us. I wanted someone who could offer an impartial spiritual perspective, but who also understood the sanctity of the vows. The meeting was awkward. Derek cried. The pastor spoke softly about accountability and stewardship. Derek apologized publicly, his voice cracking. He said he would sell the car back if possible, or sign over payments in a documented, enforceable plan. He said many things that sounded like vows. But when the pastor hugged me at the end and said, "We will walk this with you," I felt a cold knot of doubt. If he had been truly repentant, would he have needed a town square to confess? Or should the confession have been private to the person he hurt most? All the while, I kept collecting proof. Every time Derek said he'd fix it, I'd check the accounts. No transfers, no loan payments. Just silence and the same exhausted look when he met my eyes. Finally, I made one move I knew would force the issue. I printed the resignation of the joint account from my bank, a form that would remove his automatic access unless both of us signed. I didn't sign it yet. I laid it on the table with a stack of the evidence folder and the dealership receipt. "Sign this," I told him. "If you won't take the steps to make this right, then we need to protect what's left of our family financially. I'll do it alone, but Emily and I can't be vulnerable." He looked at the paperwork, then at me, and for the first time since this all began, I saw genuine fear. Not for losing me. Fear of the consequences he was finally realizing were real. He took the pen, hesitated, and with a shaky hand, signed. Not because he was repentant, I could tell, but because reality had tightened its grip. When he signed, I felt a strange mixture of vindication and sorrow. I'd protected my daughter. I'd taken stewardship into my own hands. But I had also taken a step away from the man I once loved. That night, I didn't go to bed with him. I carried Emily to her crib and watched her sleep. In the hush of the room, I felt a resolve settle in me. I would not be passive while someone spent my life away. I would choose the dignity of action over the chaos of fury. The first ripple hit the moment I showed up to Sunday service without him. We were regulars, sat in the same pew every week, third row, right side. Emily always loved the songs, even if she couldn't quite sing them. Derek was a shake every hand kind of churchgoer, the type who always made sure his tie matched his socks. So when I walked in alone, no ring, no smile, no Derek, people noticed. Mrs. Cavan from the flower committee leaned in during coffee hour and whispered, "Is everything all right, dear?" I smiled gently, the way a woman does when she's choosing peace over explanation. "We're just going through some things," I said, "but whispers have wings." And Derek's absence turned into speculation by Tuesday. I didn't feed the fire, but I didn't put it out either. That same week, the daycare administrator, a kind, soft-spoken woman named Tanya, pulled me aside during pickup. "I wasn't going to say anything, Maya," she began carefully, "but Derek came by here last month with someone, a woman. Said it was a friend visiting from out of town, but the way I don't know, it didn't sit right." I thanked her for telling me, and I left feeling like the last of my denial had been scooped out. Later that night, while Derek was still sleeping on the couch, part of his "I need space to fix this" strategy, I opened Facebook and went down the quiet rabbit hole of her page. Lila had made her profile public. I didn't see the car, but I saw the subtle brags, tagged sushi dates, blurry photos of gift bags, a cryptic caption, "Some men still know how to treat a woman right." I didn't need her to say it outright. The puzzle had already solved itself. What I hadn't expected was for the consequences to start coming for him faster than I could catch my breath. The pastor called him in for a follow-up. Just him. Whatever they spoke about stayed private, but I heard from one of the deacons that the church finance board had grown concerned. Derek was treasurer for the building fund, and while nothing illegal had occurred, there were murmurs now. Questions. Reputational erosion. The kind that comes slowly like a leak behind a wall. Then there was his job. I hadn't intended to get involved, but life has a way of exposing what's hidden. A friend of mine, Camille, worked in HR at Derek's company. She called one evening, her voice tight. "Maya, I thought you should know. There's talk. Someone forwarded screenshots of a reimbursement request Derek made for a dinner, but the name of the guest wasn't you." I felt my stomach drop. "Are they investigating?" She hesitated. "They've started looking at his expense history." I didn't ask for that to happen, but I didn't stop it either. By the end of the month, Derek was suspended. Not fired, not yet, but suspended pending an audit. The official language was about misuse of company funds and undisclosed personal involvement with a subordinate. He didn't deny it. He came home, shoulders slumped, and said, "I think I might lose my job." I didn't gloat. I didn't shout. I just said, "You didn't just cheat on me, Derek. You cheated the life we were building." He nodded, quietly, like someone finally understanding the full price of their decisions. Emily didn't understand any of it, of course. She just knew Daddy didn't go to work anymore, and Mommy wasn't laughing like she used to. I made it a point to keep her shielded, not from the truth, but from the venom. We played Tea Party in the mornings and watched cartoons at night. I kept our routine stable, even when mine were crumbling. But the most unexpected consequence came from Lila herself. One afternoon I received a letter, handwritten, no return address. The writing was neat with little hearts over the eyes. Maya, I didn't know about you. At first, he said he was separated, said you were just staying for the baby. By the time I found out, I was already involved. He bought me the car, yes, but I never asked for it. He said it was a gift, a promise. I'm sorry, for whatever it's worth. Lila? I sat with the letter in my lap for a long time. The apology didn't soothe me, but it clarified something. Derek hadn't just betrayed me. He had lied to everyone, wearing different masks for each audience. That's the thing about deception. It always runs out of runway, and when it does, the crash is loud. I thought I'd feel more satisfaction when it all unraveled. I really did. But standing in the middle of our quiet kitchen, the same place we used to dance barefoot while making pancakes, I didn't feel victorious. I felt emptied. Like betrayal had hollowed out a space inside me I didn't even know existed. Still, I knew this was a turning point. One night after putting Emily to bed, I looked at Derek, slumped on the couch again, jobless, his phone face down for once, and I said, I think it's time we talk about what's next. He looked up like a man expecting sentencing. I've been speaking with a lawyer, I continued. Nothing dramatic, just preparation. He nodded slowly. I figured. We didn't argue. That was the strangest part. All the anger had burned off like fog under a rising sun. What was left was clarity. Cold, clean, and irreversible. He offered to move out, said he'd stay with his brother until he got back on his feet. I agreed. I didn't need him around, pacing the halls like a ghost of the man I used to love. Once he left, I took the first real deep breath I'd had in months, and then I started rebuilding. Not from anger, not from pride, but from peace. I changed the locks, canceled the joint account, got my own checking account, in my name only. I met with a financial advisor who helped me budget in a way that made me feel in control again. I returned the car. That was a quiet moment, too. Driving it back to the dealership, paperwork in hand, explaining that while it wasn't my name on the title, I was the one who paid for it. The man behind the desk nodded with a look I couldn't quite read. Maybe pity, maybe respect. Either way, I left without the car, and without the weight. Around that time, my sister Lorna came to stay with us for a few weeks. She brought laughter back into the house, the kind that bubbles up over dishes and board games and late-night stories. Emily adored her, and I remembered what it felt like to be seen again. Not as a woman scorned, but as a woman healing. The divorce papers came through quietly. Derek didn't fight me on anything. Maybe guilt softened him, or maybe he just didn't have the energy left to perform. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't post about it, didn't badmouth him to the neighborhood, didn't use Emily as a pawn. I just lived. Fully, honestly, day by day. And over time, the house stopped echoing his absence. It filled instead with small joys, Saturday pancakes, preschool drawings on the fridge, my own laughter echoing off freshly painted walls. One afternoon, I took Emily to the park and watched her chase bubbles through the grass, sunlight catching her curls just right, and it hit me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was free, not from a man, but from the lies I used to tell myself, that we were happy, that I couldn't make it on my own, that betrayal would break me. It didn't. It remade me. Sometimes it's not the heartbreak that hurts the most. It's the realization that while you were planning your future with someone, they were already writing you out of theirs. I share this story not because I want pity. No, child, I don't need that. But because too many of us learn too late that love should never come with fine print. That we should never mean me funding your secrets while you call it loyalty. I once believed marriage meant sacrifice, but I've learned it should never mean erasure. I still believe in kindness, in second chances, but I also believe in keeping your name on your own bank account. If you're listening to this and you're ignoring those little signs, the hushed calls, the late nights, the shifting energy in a room, please don't gaslight yourself the way I did. Love doesn't hide. It doesn't siphon. It doesn't lie in your face and call it protection. It took me losing everything I thought we built to finally start building something real, something that didn't depend on another person's version of honesty. Now, my daughter grows up in a house where her mother smiles for real, and that, my friends, is more valuable than any car could ever be. Would you have done what I did? Or would you have let it go and stayed for peace? Tell me in the comments. Your story might just help someone else find their voice too. And if this touched you, subscribe for more true stories every week. From one heart to another, stay wise, stay whole, and never ignore your intuition.